This is his last chance to make everything that he's worked for over these 40 years mean something. It's going to begin tonight, but if this government is not successful, if it does not last for 3 years, it will not have been worth it, the time he has devoted to politics. So this is a very, very important beginning for Winston Peters.
New Zealand first voted out of Parliament in 2008, on an election night in 2008, and it was ignominious, and they were tossed out. It's not over yet, he said. We'll reorganise ourselves in the next few months and we'll see what 2011 might hold for all of us. You're right, Matthew Hooton, he doesn't have an overwhelming successful track record in government, but by God, he is a redoubtable, singular, tenacious, opportunistic and extraordinary politician. And ladies and gentlemen, we are watching now as he walks into the Beehive Theatrette. He is surrounded by media. Patrick Gower from News Hub is asking him questions as he talks. He is not, of course, answering them because he will not be robbed of this extraordinary set-piece occasion.
Thank you very much for coming along and for being patient and waiting out this event. You may not believe it, but I am truly grateful to you that you've turned up. Let's begin by thanking both the National and Labour parties for the manner in which these negotiations have been conducted and the work that they have put into it. It should be said that during this time, elements of how politics should operate in an MMP environment were seen with great clarity. On 23rd September election day, the effect of over 446,000 votes, or 70% of the total, were not known. We believed on election night that those uncounted votes would have a profound effect on the final outcome. That's why New Zealand First waited until October 7 to find out exactly the numbers we were dealing with and what that meant before beginning negotiations with interested parties and bringing this matter to finality as soon as we could in the most responsible time. We started negotiations the day after, on October 8. We believe that 11 days from start to finish is not too long to wait and stands in stark contrast to the months that it will take the composition of the German government to be known. Germany had an election on the 24th of September, the day after ours. New Zealanders will know the outcome of their election day tonight. The German people will now not know the outcome of their election until December. Now, this is a decision made by New Zealand First, and it's their decision, not that of the leader. Every New Zealand First MP and board member is a witness to that. We consult, and that's been our case and our policy for the last 24 years. Now, personally, I have entered into 2 governmental agreements with Prime Ministers from different parties. We've shaken hands on it, and both those former Prime Ministers have confirmed that as a result of that agreement, I entirely, utterly, totally kept my word. In the last campaign, the Labour Party and the Green Party campaigned as an alternative government. On the question of the numerical construction of that government, New Zealand First was never consulted, but many commentators factored in our support as a given. That enabled the National Party and others in a grouping of 4 parties to claim that they were facing a group of 3 parties, and where New Zealand First was concerned, voters should, to quote them, cut out the middleman, end of quotes. Now, whether people like it or not, the strategies of both those alternatives failed. That is why we are in the position we are in now. That said, the decision that is about to be announced does not represent just over 7% of the vote, or 70%, or dare I say it, 45%. This decision represents the majority in an MMP environment, in an MMP parliament. The government I was first a member of, for example, had under 40% of the vote and less than 10,000 than the opposition party got in that election. On the agreement we've reached is a summation of the policies that survived the negotiations. I want to stress that. It is a summation of the policies that survived the negotiations. As the song goes, You can't always get what you want. Our negotiations have taken place against a backdrop of changing international and internal economic circumstances which we cannot ignore. We in New Zealand First believe that an economic correction or a slowdown is looming and that the first signs are already here. In the housing market slowdown, in Reserve Bank and trading banks' nervousness, in the cessation of hot money from abroad, in property ownership concerns, in receding consumer optimism, and in ebbing retailer confidence. There were great risks in whatever decision we made, and despite our having had no influence on these risks, some will attempt, when the looming dangers come, to heap the blame on us. That those blame caricatures are both spurious and misplaced won't stop attempts to misdescribe the cause of these events. That's why we are putting this scenario out front right now so that such attempts will fail. Awareness of looming consensus has affected our decision. Our choice today relates to how best we mitigate, not worsen, what is coming, we believe, and its impact on as many New Zealanders as is possible. Now, can I say this? As a party, New Zealand First believes that it has secured major policies to advance the New Zealand economic and social condition. Big or small, all of these policies are important. When we construct the formal agreement summating those matters we have negotiated, these policies will be published. It is not my privilege or responsibility to summarise and announce them today. That will be for someone else. Can I just say, far too many New Zealanders have come to view today's capitalism not as their friend but as their foe. And they are not all wrong. That is why we believe that capitalism must regain its human face. That perception has influenced deeply New Zealand First negotiations. We had a choice to make, whether it was either with National or Labour, for a modified status quo or for change. In our negotiations, both National and Labour were presented with that opportunity, working together, cooperating together for New Zealand. That's why in the end we chose a coalition government of New Zealand First with the New Zealand Labour Party. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Mr. Peters, how many portfolios have you got in this new government?
Well, it's a sizable list, but some are big and some are small, and it's up to the Labour leader to announce those when we've completed all our negotiations.
Do you think the Greens will be signing off on this when they have their meeting with the delegates tonight?
Well, that is not my province either. We entered the negotiations with Labour, knowing that they would handle separately the Greens. We were always going to be in a coalition government with one party, not more, and that is an answer that I can't give. It has to be given by somebody else.
Have you talked to Bill English yet?
Jacinda Ardern is up to the job of being Prime Minister.
Beg pardon?
Do you believe the experience of Jacinda Ardern is up to being Prime Minister?
Well, we wouldn't have made the decision if we didn't.
What qualities do you believe she'll bring to the job?
Well, I think, amongst other things, she exhibited extraordinary talent in the campaign itself, from a very hopeless position to a position where they are in the office of being the next government today.
Winston Peters, do you think that this government arrangement and the set of policies that you have can bring about significant change to the economic structure of New Zealand? Was that the difference by the sounds of your speech?
Well, our perception was that the people of this country, regardless of what a lot of people say, did want change. And we've responded to that. And I believe in the affirmative, what you said, it's going to happen. That's what we're going to put all our efforts into, to make sure it works, and we get the change that this country believes it needs.
Did you call Jacinda Ardern before coming here?
No.
So she found out through your live...
Well, this decision is owed first to the New Zealand people. They are, after all, the people that put us here, not politicians. the New Zealand voters.
Mr. Peters, what role will you have in the coalition government? Can you tell us?
Can I tell you? Well, let me just say that any role I've got is in agreement with the Prime Minister if I decided to do it.
So you haven't agreed on...
Can you tell us what that was? Sorry. Can you tell us what that...
Well, if I choose to be the Deputy Prime Minister, then that was made clear to me.
Yep.
And if I chose to take certain portfolios, then we would discuss it with the Prime Minister. And I don't want to say which ones those are.
What will this mean to exporters in particular who live in the regions?
Well, I hope it means that we will start returning to an economy that understands we live or die by exporting. That exporting against GDP has been in decline and we've got to turn it around. Unless we get far more people, far more successfully, businesses and enterprises and individuals offshore bringing money back to the family in New Zealand, then the slide we are currently on will continue.
Will that require a fall in the dollar to achieve, do you think?
Well, if you've got every... Now, I've got to tell you that we have not got the Minister of Finance's job, and it's for him to answer those questions. But if the IMF and every other commentator has been saying, including the head of the Reserve Bank, that our dollar's overvalued, then perhaps the political system should respond to it. And they've been saying it for an awful long time.
Do you expect a change to the Reserve Bank Act?
Yes, I do.
What issues, Mr. Peters, are to the forefront of your thinking? What have they been during these negotiations?
Well, I think the biggest issue has been this. We heard and we've read many comments about poverty and a changing condition and the concentrating of wealth in fewer and fewer hands. We wish to address that issue. And it's not an old-fashioned sentiment. We did it hugely in past decades in our great history, and we want to be part of doing it again.
What about portfolio areas? I mean, what, not necessarily portfolios, but policy. What policy areas are to the forefront of your mind?
Well, regional development is most definitely. Redressing the infrastructure deficit, particularly in the regions, is definitely to the forefront of our thinking, and key achievements like that. But that's for others, the Prime Minister to announce as her perspective.
Do you have a view, Mr. Peters, on whether the Greens are part of the coalition or what position they're likely to take in this?
No, they've got a confidence and supply agreement with the Labour Party. We have a coalition agreement with the Labour Party. We're in coalition with the Labour Party. They are outside the government in support of it.
But will they have ministers outside Cabinet where you will be sharing Cabinet committees?
Well, it's really the province of the Prime Minister to tell you that. We're going to start off and do this right.
Will this mean the end of the TPP?
Pardon?
Will this mean the end of the TPP as far as New Zealand is concerned?
Well, we're in agreement to look at the Investors' Disputes Clause. There is an answer to that, of course, because in 2001 there was a solution written into the Singapore-New Zealand deal, which somehow escaped people. And the other interest is the ownership of land and homes in this country. And on that we've got agreement with the Labour Party.
So what would you say on the change to foreign ownership?
What's our agreement?
What's the agreement about the change to foreign ownership?
What we both campaigned on.
What would you say to people, Mr. Peters?
You do remember what that was, don't you? Thank you very much.
What would you say to people that would say that, well, hang on, National has got 10 more seats than Labour. Surely they should have been the government.
Well, 45% is not a majority of Parliament under MMP. As I say, I was a member of Parliament for the party that got 8 or 9% a long time ago, and the Labour Party got 40%. We are operating in an MMP environment, and today the majority view of this country is for the change that's happening.
Do you have a message to National tonight?
Yeah, I do. It was really extraordinarily disappointing in a way to have to make this decision, but it always was inevitable. I thought the way they went about the talks, as I said, showed MMP in a new light with great clarity to us. And I suppose we all came away wishing we had done this far more often.
When did you come to your decision today?
We came to the decision exactly about a quarter of an hour before we got the car and came across here, and that's a fact. And that is the caucus gave me their vote individually, and so did the board individually. And so we knew what we had when I read them. And of course, all of those votes are open for the caucus to look at tomorrow morning.
Did you end up
What
with
was the
100?
key difference? What was the key difference between the National and the Labor offers that made it for you?
Well, I can't talk for all of my caucus colleagues. You can only try and summate or précis what their comments would have been. But all around the country, people felt that we could and should be doing far better, that there are far too many people living in degraded and poor circumstances in this country, and that too many people in the power structure of New Zealand are simply out of touch. That was the biggest thing that changed, I think, my caucus, and by the looks of it, my board as well.
What changes do you expect in housing?
Well, first of all, I'd expect there to be fewer people coming here so that we can begin to handle the demand side, and that we start building 10,000 affordable homes per year. And affordable homes is what we're talking about, which we clarified in the negotiations, that New Zealanders can hope to get on the rung of home ownership as first homeowners far more than has been the case in recent times.
And how much of a reduction in migration do you expect?
Pardon?
How much of a reduction in migration do you expect?
I think any forward forecast would see that, and Treasury's been announcing that for a long time, except it's never come to fruition. They've been saying it ad infinitum, maybe as a palliative to those of us who are concerned about it. But we mean to ensure that we have a much more accurate and certain immigration stream of skills and excellence and genuine export education. I think the Prime Minister could say more about that, but that's the two things, those are two things we agreed upon, and that should have a profound effect on change. I don't think it's going to have any concern for the people out in parts of New Zealand who desperately need skilled workers, but it's the massive number that were coming who are not skilled that concerned us.
Will the
Were the
port be
votes in
moved
your
in
caucus,
north?
Mr Peters, were they, the caucus and the board, were they unanimous?
Not quite.
Well, how many detractors did you have?
Well, enough for me to be totally confident that we had a consensus rather than a vote. It wasn't a vote, it was a statement.
When you
So
say-
not everybody agreed with it?
Well, it's always been our practice that if you've got anything like 30%, 20% disagreement in caucus, to go over the subject again and persuade others to the cause and the soundness of what you're arguing. We've always followed that policy, and I'm pleased to say that tonight, that's what we got.
Will the
Peters,
port be
there was a
moving
story around
north?
this afternoon that National had been negotiating, and you were asking for more ministers, and that was one of the reasons why there was delay and possibly why you didn't go with National. Is there any truth in that?
Like so many comments that I've read in the last few weeks, and I don't want to give you my personal view of it. I think you might already know what it is. I was accused of holding the country to ransom when 400,000 plus votes hadn't been counted, and it never stopped. And you know where it came from. But I'm not going to be pointed and personal about the matter. Let me just say that that statement is utterly, totally false, and I've got a record to prove it.
Will Auckland...
Quite the converse.
You asked for
Okay.
fewer seats?
Well, it's not for me it's not for me to divulge what went on there because we've sworn to secrecy, and since 1996 we have never divulged any of those talks, and we won't divulge these ones either.
Mr. Peters, the dollar has fallen considerably on the news. Are you welcoming that?
Sorry, it fell before this announcement and a long time before.
It fell on the announcement as
You're
well.
a financial reporter, you should know
It
that.
fell on the announcement too. Is that good news though? That's one of your prime
Oh, I thought
policies.
you were blaming,
to have a lower
I
New
thought you were
Zealand dollar.
blaming me for it.
Mr. Peters, will the Auckland port be moved north?
Again, that'll be something that the Prime Minister will talk about.
Mr Peters, did you agree on a significant change or any particular change to the Reserve Bank Act or the monetary policy setting?
I think it'd be fair to say that if you have a look at the Labor Party statements on this and our statements on this, including two bills that failed by one vote 2 times, that would be where this change will take place. I'm not letting anything out.
So you're talking about making inflation a part of the Reserve Bank's, I'm sorry, the New Zealand dollar a part of the Reserve Bank's mandate as well, or employment, sorry.
Actually, the dollar is what it ends up at the end of the mandate. It's not part of it, right? But you're a financial reporter, you should know that.
So will you reintroduce, can you see the private members bill that failed coming back as a government bill?
Well, I could see something like that because, you know, again, we've got to talk with the Labour Party as to how we redraft this. And I'm not going to claim that it would be that bill, but all I hope is can probably announce that we will be satisfied with it.
Do you expect to go the full whole hog in terms of the Singapore model, or will we still be using the official cash rate as the prime monetary policy tool rather than the
look,
currency?
we should go down the road of the Singapore model. They are an economic success story and a standout one without any resources
Just
but their
monetary
people
policy.
and their intelligence. But I didn't secure that.
You didn't secure using the exchange rate?
Not the Singapore model.
Do you have a message for the...
Pardon?
Can you confirm that all ministerial portfolios...
Sorry, can I have one at a time?
What about the future of the Māori seats?
Well, the Maori seats are now back in the hands of the Labour Party.
Was there discussions during the talks with them about those seats?
Well, you know, if people want policy, they've got to vote for it. And we didn't get enough votes to push that home. I say again, if you don't get enough votes, you cannot get the change. A lot of people want change, but when it comes to voting, they're fast on the lip and slow on the voting hip. That's what happened. But remember this, that the majority of Maori, entitled to be on the Maori roll, aren't on it. And of those ones on it, half didn't vote. The MMP has been profoundly influential in giving far greater Maori representation in this country. That's what the Royal Commission said the MMP would do, and it's happened. And I hope there comes a time when we, as a people, respond to it so that we have one franchise.
Can you confirm that the ministerial positions you have are all in a coalition, that they would all be at the cabinet table?
Yes.
And you can't say, or you're leaving it to another doom to say exactly how many there is and the
Yes.
specific portfolios?
Well, I'm really here to make the announcement. Now, for the Prime Minister to tell you details of that.
When do you expect to be sworn in?
Well, that'll depend on the calendar. Don't forget we've got Labour Weekend coming. It'll be the normal diary, but well in time to be ready for the next sitting of Parliament.
But will you expect to sit down with her to form the next cabinet
Yes, I mean...
in the next couple of days?
Well, with all the speed we possibly can. But the major decision has been made, and all the factors inside that decision have been concluded. Anything we haven't sorted out, I hope we sort out in good faith.
What will be your first action in government? What will be the first thing you do?
What'll be the first thing I do in government? I can't tell you until I get there.
Mr. Peters, retired couples could get an extra $640 a week under budget changes that National is proposing for this year. What can you say tonight to senior citizens who may be concerned that they will lose from this choice that you've made?
Well, if you look at the target we have for the minimum wage and realise that that is factored into eventually the 66% of the net average weekly wage that retired couples get, they will do better out of that than what is being offered by the National Party. The second thing is, the last time we were in government or affected by and had a chance to influence government, we took the minimum wage in 3 years flat from $9 to $12 an hour. No one has ever done that, and the whole economy didn't collapse. People were simply better off, and so were the older people of this country.
Mr. Peters, are you confident the Greens will support this deal?
Well, you have to ask the Greens that, and they're just down the road.
Have you had any dialogue with them at all?
No, because I didn't campaign with the Greens.
How do you know they've got
The reality is that you people, well, not you, but some of you, gaily went out every day talking about the alternative government and put us in as a factor without even consulting us. This is what this announcement is tonight about.
How do you know
While we are not in that position, never were, and have been mischaracterised, and we did and lost a serious number of votes because statements were made that were simply not true. Now, you don't go into coalition negotiations with full of recriminations and vengeance, because that doesn't help. I'm just stating a bare fact.
Do you think you'll be able to work with them, though?
Sorry?
Do you think you'll be able to work with them and get along with them?
Well, some of you people have said I hate the Greens and I hate James Shaw, and I can tell you this for a fact that I have never said, privately or publicly, a bad word about them. That is a fact.
But do you think you can work with them?
Well, if you apologise to them for what you've said about me, where they're concerned, then we'll probably get on fine, yes.
How do you know they've got a supply and confidence agreement with Labor then? As you said before.
Because the Labor Party told you, and they told me, that they had an arrangement with the Greens, and I trust them to have kept it.
Rather than a full coalition, though, is that what you're saying?
But they're not in full coalition. That's the point. This coalition is the Labor Party and the New Zealand First Party coalition.
Will you allow any Green MPs to be members of Cabinet? Will the Greens sit out?
You're going to have to ask the leader of the Labor Party that.
So it's up to her?
No. You're going to have to ask her for the answer. I know the answer, but it's for her, because she's spoken to the Greens and has arranged with the Labor Party with the Greens, to tell you with precision what it is, because she has seen it. I have not.
There was allegations during the campaign, or arguments during the campaign, that there was an urban-rural split, and that particularly focused on Labor's proposal for a water tax. What have you been able to achieve in terms of the water tax and in terms of the output for the rural communities which you represent?
Well, when it's announced and when the summation of all our talks is put in a formal document, and that's going to take a few days, but we all have a record of it, you'll know that we have done the best we possibly could for the people out in the rural sector and their concerns.
And will they be happy?
They should be.
What about the arrangements for New Zealand superannuation and the New Zealand Superannuation Fund? What do you expect?
Well, the Greens were always going to start contributing to the fund. Sorry, the Labor Party was always going to start contributing to the fund far faster than the National Party. And I can say we have always subscribed to the view that we should never stop making those contributions, because we'd probably be at $53 billion now. And if Treasury thought it was a smart idea, maybe it just was, in this case, a good idea.
Is it possible New Zealand First could hold both the foreign affairs and defence portfolios?
Well, I haven't completed negotiations on that, but it's a possibility, yes.
So, sorry, you haven't completed negotiations on what roles New Zealand First would have in the government?
Yes, we haven't completed those. We've had a extraordinarily constructive talk, but in the end you've got to say, no, look, we don't want to put square pegs into round holes, so to speak, in terms of personalities. If you're going to have associate ministers and what have you, let's make sure they can work together. Let's do some serious work on that before we just make the decision.
But
that's what we agreed to do.
Are you clear how many ministerial portfolios you'll have, though?
Yes.
Is that set in concrete?
Yes.
And how many is it?
You'll have to ask the Labor Party leader.
But you've definitely agreed to that, shook hands, as it were.
Say?
You've definitely agreed to that.
I haven't had a chance to tell her formally what I've just told you, but no doubt she's watching television, she saw it. We'll shake hands when we've got the agreement all completed and all agreed upon, and we'll keep our word.
So just to be clear, did Bill English find out through the television as well?
I was asked by both the Labor Party and National Party would I tell them in advance, and I said I have not even thought of that, but I'll tell you if I do intend to do that, and I didn't.
Wouldn't it have been the decent thing to do, to tell the loser?
No, with respect, the people of this country are the people entitled to know first. They are, after all, who our masters are. It would have been a nice thing to do, but then I probably wouldn't be talking to you and trying to explain things if that had happened.
Were National just not willing to budge on policy?
Well, if you look at why the New Zealand First Caucus took the view it did, when you survey the economic and social condition of this country, our long-term slide down the OECD, and all the statements, for example, of growth, when you factor in the population increase of 2%, growth is less than 1%, and down the bottom of the OECD, in the end you have to face the blunt reality that far too many New Zealand people are going without, and without hope, and without the chance of knowing that if they save and work hard, next year will be better. That used to be the condition which made New Zealand great one time, because no matter how tough it was, you knew that it would be better next year. That stopped some time ago, and we want to correct that.
The Pike River families will be watching this quite anxiously. What's your message to them?
Say again?
The Pike River families will be watching this anxiously. What's your message to them tonight?
They will be extraordinarily pleased that the commitment I made at the beginning of this year is going to be kept.
Mr. Peters, if Jacinda Ardern hasn't heard from you other than tonight, right now, do you have a message for her at the moment?
Well, I kind of think that the message I put over the airwaves tonight was rather encouraging. What more could I do to make a day a special day?
So is entry to the mine guaranteed?